Hello, and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve, and sorry for not releasing anything last week. It's been pretty hectic in the lead up to Christmas, but since the last video I released, I've had two green arrows, moving up about 430,000 places. The green arrow last week in Game Week 17 took some doing, though, as I was without Isak and his hat trick. But I did manage to pull in a massive 14 points from my 1.1% owned Dean Huijsen to make up the difference. It could have been also a huge week had I not put Rodgers on the bench, who absolutely stomped City's midfield at the weekend. But anyway, we'll go through my thoughts on the performance of my team in Game Week 17 at the end of this video. Today's main topic will be what I did with Saka, who I did actually sell yesterday in order to avoid the price drop. And we'll also go through what I did with my second free transfer, as I spent that this morning before today's price rises, catching the price rise of my second new recruit. So with that being said, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, especially if you get any value out of the following content. Right, so game week 18 moves. So Saka went down on the weekend very early in the match, holding onto his hamstring like you only do when you've felt that pop. Yeah, it's almost certainly a pulled hammy. Arteta hasn't actually said anything yet. My guess is on a pulled hamstring or maybe even something torn, which could be quite a lot worse. But if it is a pulled hammy, which is probably the most likely scenario, he's gonna be out for at least 3 weeks, maybe up to 6, depending on the severity of the pull. Yesterday he was dropping in price, and it would have cost me 0.1 million had I missed the drop, as I did bring him in for 10.2 million a few weeks ago. So I went through the list of most sport players. Well, you can't see that too easily there. So if we bring up the most sport players for game week 18, Luis Diaz is actually at the top of the list in midfield, being brought in by 280,000. That's net transfers in, by the way. So he is the top transferred in player. Now he is playing extremely well. So is Liverpool, by the way. They are humming along, in case you hadn't noticed. But for me, I immediately ruled out Luis Diaz, as there's just too much competition for his spot. Everyone is playing well in that team, and he is quite easily, or going to be easily, rotated without too much. I mean, we wouldn't be too surprised if he was rotated out. Jota is coming back from injury. He's got minutes off the bench in the last two fixtures. Gakpo is there. Nunez is also floating around. They're all vying for that forward or left wing spot. You'd expect it to probably be Nunez or Jota for that front position, and Gakpo and Diaz for that position out on the left. And so I just don't know who's going to be playing most of the minutes across this pretty hectic schedule. And so Luis Diaz was immediately ruled out for me, and he is the top transferred in target. Now, Jota, obviously in the same boat as Diaz, and he's only just back from injury. And so I will not be buying into the Liverpool attack with my replacement for Saka. Maddison is the second most bought in player with a net transfers in of 210,000 transfers at the moment, currently owned by 9.9% of the game. Now, my thoughts on Maddison is he is an incredibly streaky player, and that's all down to, I think, the top 3 inches. It's whether he's feeling up for it or not. Now, he has been doing extremely well recently, but he has been in and out of the team across the season. Now, I'm pretty sure he's probably going to get quite a bit of minutes in the next fixture, but past that point, I'm not entirely certain. Wolves at home, Newcastle at home in game weeks 19 and 20. I'm totally unsure of his minutes. Postecoglou has actually been using a few different formations, sometimes playing with dual 10s, sometimes playing a 4-2-3-1, depending on the opponent. And Kulusevski has been just outstanding all season, and so I could quite easily see Maddison with a little bit of rotation there. And so I ruled out Maddison almost immediately as well. Now, Rodgers is the next most bought in at 197k. I already own Rodgers, so can't bring him in. And then the next two is Mo Salah at 193k. I'm surprised there's still quite a lot of players that don't own Salah. And then the fifth most bought player is actually Cole Palmer at 142,000 transfers in. So the next set of players that I did briefly consider, but also ruled out, weren't actually in the top 5 transfer targets for this game week. At the top of that list, which is probably going to be one of the most favoured content creator players, is Bruno Fernandes. Now, I have been watching United on and off recently. It's been a pretty frustrating team to follow for a while now. But my main reason for deciding against Bruno Fernandes, well, there's a few reasons actually. First of all, no one at United has actually been accurate or clinical with their finishing. I mean, I think who was it? It was like Garnacho was bearing down on goal in the weekend just gone, and I just had absolutely no fear of him actually scoring that goal. Not that he was too highly owned or anything, but their finishing is kind of all over the place. Bruno Fernandes has some huge opportunities. One that was just put on a plate for him that he was demanding to his feet, laid the ball on a platter, rolling along the ground, nice weight, no bobble, and he shanks it incredibly wide. It's just like no one at United is scoring goals quite consistently, and so his assist potential, Bruno Fernandes' assist potential, is pretty limited. Bruno himself hasn't been very accurate in his shooting either. He also takes a lot of long-range shots, which deceptively increases his XG. He's just not my type of player. Yes, he is on penalties. We do have the types of players that could earn us some penalties in the likes of Garnacho and Ahmad, but all that's going on at United, and I don't really like the fixtures too much either. He was pretty much immediately out of my thoughts. And the next two players we'll just touch on very briefly because they were just also out of my thoughts very, very quickly. The first one was Son. The fixtures are okay, but they aren't amazing for Son. 9.8 million is incredibly steep for what you would be buying into. And I just think that we can quite easily do better with way cheaper options. Probably very similar goal threat over the upcoming run of fixtures. And the next one that I immediately discounted was, unfortunately, Phil Foden, as he is typically one of my go-to players. I really do like Phil Foden as a player, but I'm not going anywhere near City when they're in this type of form. Who knows how long they're going to take to turn it around. And 9.1 million is also very expensive for what you end up getting. So just bring this up. We'll go to the fixture ticker and zoom this in a little bit so you can see it a bit better. So this fixture ticker is currently sorted by the next 6 game weeks, ordered by the delta between the team and the team that their opponent. So I've got a short list of replacements. Now I did buy in Saka for the fixtures. And immediately they have Ipswich at home this week. And I don't really see any reason to move away from the Arsenal attack. So it's really only down to 2 players for me on the short list of candidates. Now I know there's a whole bunch of other options floating around out there, like Ismail Yassar from Crystal Palace. There's a whole bunch of decent options in the 5 to 7 million kind of price bracket. But for me, it just comes down to Odegaard or Martinelli. I won't be going near Trossard because I think he's probably a short-term pick for as long as Saka will be out, which could actually end up being quite a while, but because we don't know the actual severity of the injury that Saka has sustained right now, I'm just going to avoid Trossard. And I actually think Odegaard and Martinelli are better players than Trossard anyway. So Odegaard, I think, is a pretty decent pick. He should have penalties, although he may end up sharing them with some other players in the team, potentially Havertz. Who knows who's actually going to end up lining up for the penalties there. Now, Odegaard has had 21 shots in all competitions this season, and he's only managed to get 4 of those on target. And most of Odegaard's threat will probably come from assists and any penalties that Arsenal pick up. It's a pretty good price. I would definitely pick Odegaard over Bruno Fernandes. I don't even think that's close. I think Odegaard's far superior option, given the state of the team. Arsenal's just way outperforming Manchester United at the moment. But for me, I've actually gone with Gabriel Martinelli as my transfer in for Saka. Now, he's been back from injury for a long enough spell. I think it's 4 games in the Premier League and 1 in the Champions League. And there was a couple before that where he actually got some minutes off the bench as he was coming back into the team. Now, Martinelli typically gets very decent minutes when he's fit. But considering Saka is going to be out for many weeks, and also Sterling is injured at the moment and sounds like he's going to be out for quite a few weeks, I think Martinelli's minutes will actually be very strong over the upcoming run of fixtures. Now, in comparison to Odegaard, who had 21 shots in all competitions, Martinelli has been injured for enough fixtures this season, but he has taken 31 shots in all competitions this season, and he's managed to get 16 of those on target compared to Odegaard's 4. So basically, 1 in every 2 shots for Martinelli is hitting the mark, and he looked outstanding in the game at the weekend. He actually did pull in. Where am I going to be able to show this? Oh, I've zoomed into. That's annoying how Chrome does that, by the way. So, I can't show you it there either. If I pull this up, well, I'll just give away my team. That's all right. Was going to hold on to it, but if I show you this, you'll see my other transfer in here is also Isak. It's not really any surprises. Isak just has to come in. But if I bring up Gabriel Martinelli for the Crystal Palace away fixture, in which, I mean, I think a lot of players or managers were thinking that Arsenal might not score too many goals against Crystal Palace, but they actually managed to bang in 5 away from home. Martinelli came out with an XGI of 1.19, which is made up of 0.66 XG and 0.53 expected assists. I mean, those are pretty epic numbers. Took his goal pretty well, had some pretty decent opportunities to shoot. And Ipswich at home this week. I mean, I watched Ipswich's game last weekend, and they got absolutely crushed. Arsenal could do 4, 5, 6 goals in this match, and I want to jump in on those potential returns. Brentford away next week. Brentford probably going to put in a little bit of a low block, but they are at home, so they are probably going to try and be a little bit more adventurous, potentially, than when they are away from home. But I still think Arsenal are going to sink a whole bunch of goals in that game as well, as Brentford have been shipping lots of opportunities across the season. Brighton away might be a little bit tricky, but Brighton have been a little bit hit and miss lately. And then Tottenham at home, well, they just got crushed by Liverpool. 6 goals at the weekend just gone. And so Arsenal could quite easily score a whole bunch of goals in that fixture as well. So in the next four, 2 home games, 2 away games to relatively easy opponents. This is why I've stuck within the Arsenal camp, and I'm going with the more accurate finisher in Martinelli over Odegaard, giving up on the penalties. And it looks like he's actually going to be one of the least transferred in assets as a Saka replacement. So I'm actually super stoked that he's going to be a huge differential heading into this run of fixtures. And of course, as I've already given away, I just cannot ignore Isak. Isak was absolutely cooking in the game week just gone against Ipswich. 4-0 away from home, comes away with a hat-trick and 17 points in a 72-minute appearance from 1.73 expected goal involvement. That is pretty epic. They also beat Leicester at home 4-0 in the week prior, with Isak coming away with a goal and an assist. He also scored against Brentford and against Liverpool in the last 4 game weeks. I actually had Saka in my team pitted against Isak in the setup that I was running with. I couldn't really afford both. And of course, Saka going down in the first 20 minutes of that match in the weekend where they scored, decent enough goals. Saka could have done quite well in that game week, which was quite annoying. But with Saka injured, 2 free transfers in the bank, I just could not ignore Isak. And so I have brought him in, and I sold Evan Nielsen up front as I was doubled up on the Bournemouth attack with both Semenyo and Evan Nielsen. I much prefer Semenyo as an option to Evan Nielsen. And I have no thoughts of selling João Pedro right now. I do know that he hasn't been returning recently. It's been like 4, maybe even 5 game weeks since he's actually returned. But for that price on pens, should get a whole bunch of opportunities, and the fixtures are still okay for João Pedro. It was an easy choice of Evan Nielsen out in order to bring Alexander Isak in. Now, I did bring him in this morning for 8.9 million. He has risen to 9.0 million. And yeah, 2 free transfers spent. And so we're looking at 10 players at home this week. Triple up of Arsenal at home to Ipswich. Raya, Gabriel and Martinelli, the new man, into the team. Triple up on Chelsea with Cucurella, who has served his suspension for getting sent off. He actually, so the goal, the video that I missed last week, Cucurella scored in that game, scored his first goal for Chelsea, and then goes and gets himself a second yellow card after the final whistle has been spent. Got himself suspended. Uber frustrating. Palmer and Nicholas Jackson, who, I mean, I may as well do a bit of it. We're basically here. Let's do the Game Week 17 review in a second. But so we've got the triple up in Chelsea. We've got Isak at home to Aston Villa. João Pedro at home to Brentford. Semenyo at home to Crystal Palace. Pedro Porro awaiting Nottingham Forest. Now, I'm not entirely sure I'm actually going to play Pedro Porro. I'm pretty sure his minutes are probably pretty certain with Udogie currently injured. But man, he has been the reason that, well, a big part of the reason that goals have been flowing in. I've pointed him out many occasions. He did end up actually getting benched in game week 16, and he actually came on in the what did he come on in? The 28th minute or something like that, and managed to keep a clean sheet. So it was super lucky that he actually came on and got that clean sheet. But then he goes and gets a -1 against Liverpool for conceding 6 goals, one of which he, I mean, I'll go through in the Game Week 17 review, but man, he is probably not long going to leave my team. And then I have a real question of whether or not I actually play Rodgers away to Newcastle with the form that he is in. Like, Rodgers just looked outstanding against City last week, so I might rotate him in for potentially João Pedro, as I do think I would prefer Semenyo over João Pedro, but we will see there. And then I could end up playing Huijsen over Pedro Porro and take the goal threat that I do think that Dean Huijsen comes with, which is also why he's in my team. But let's go through a very quick game week 17 review. I did come away with 80 points, the average of 60, which took some doing without Isak 17 points up front. And unfortunately, I left Rodgers on the bench for his 14-pointer against Man City. So the double up Arsenal defense conceded one goal against Crystal Palace, but Gabriel did manage to pick up an assist and pulled himself in with a yellow card. Dean Huijsen, the absolute, oh my God. So I bought Dean Huijsen in to boost my bench last game week, actually. And the reason that I went with him is when there's a 2-meter tall centre back that's up for grabs. He's 1.97 meters tall. The guy is an absolute giant. Playing in, I think, about the 8th best defense in the league across the season, and who's actually constantly getting his head to the ball on set pieces. So he is a man who does know how to use his height. I'm basically all in. Best yet, I actually picked him up for 4.3 million. He looks like he might go up in price. He hasn't gone up in price yet. Still only 4.3 million. Scored 2 goals since he's been starting in the team with Senesi out with a bit of a long-term injury. His minutes look pretty secured with Senesi out of the team. If you go and have a look at his FBref stats, most of his shots are actually on target as well. So he is a pretty good, accurate header off the ball. When you're 1.97 meters tall, it makes it incredibly difficult for any defender to try and mark him. Yeah, it's looking good. I mean, 14 points against Manchester United away, picking up the clean sheet as well. I mean, they were very lucky to get the clean sheet. It was United's finishing that was the main reason that they managed to keep that clean sheet. It was just horrible. But he saved me from the Isak hat-trick this week, which I am super happy about. Pedro Porro, like I said, -1 points for conceding 6 goals. Now, I've actually written down in my match notes from that Porro is one of the leading reasons why Spurs concede so many goals. I also think that is probably why he was benched in game week 16. He is constantly ball watching, seems to have a complete lack of awareness, and was the cause of Liverpool's first goal by trying to direct play rather than tracking Diaz, who had a free run onto Trent Alexander-Arnold's cross and scored a header unchallenged. He just doesn't seem to recognize when they are in dangerous situations, and is just always ball watching. And I mean, with the amount of goals they are likely to concede, and Fraser Forster as well, by the way, he is not a very good keeper. It's not looking good for the Spurs defensive prospects moving forward. Now, he was benched a couple of game weeks ago, and I suspect when Spurs do have Udogie back and fit, he could find himself on the bench once again. Now, he's probably going to play it this week, but I am seriously considering playing Dean Huijsen over him. It's not looking good. I mean, Mo Salah was the clear standout captain. He's been the standout captain for me for quite a while now. He's just had perma armband on him. 2 goals, 2 assists. I mean, it was just pure class. This first assist he got was amazing. The first goal he got was just right place, right time, knowing exactly where he needs to be. For his second goal, it was such a calm finish on his weak foot, simply placing it past Fraser Forster. And then his second assist was relatively fortunate. It was a great through ball to Diaz, don't get me wrong, but he does benefit from Diaz sinking an incredibly tough shot with a superb finish, hitting that fast stick. Now the leader in the Golden Boot race with 15 goals in 16 matches. I think he's now 2 ahead of Haaland, who I think is currently in second place. Cole Palmer had a couple of opportunities to score in that game, was nowhere near in my thoughts for taking the armband off Salah. Palmer doesn't seem to get as many shots as I would like him to get to be able to chuck the armband on him. I mean, you can kind of see the last couple of XGI stats here. 0.41, 0.54 is all right. 2.35, but that was against Spurs, which I have been saying has been bad for a while. And Southampton can't really count that either, as they are just horrific. But yeah, it's going to be perma-captain Salah for me for quite some time now. Saka with the one-pointer with the unfortunate injury early on. Semenyo took his goal really well. He had a couple of other chances to score in that game. Got one horribly wrong. Almost ended up on the sideline. Evan Nielsen hasn't really been afforded the opportunities that I was hoping he was going to get in this attacking team. That's another reason why I have ditched him for Isak. Nicholas Jackson still managing to dodge his 5th yellow card. I think he hit the post. He's been unlucky not to score a lot more points over the last couple of game weeks. He's one of my differentials. What's he owned at now? He's actually 30% owned, so he's not that big of a differential. He's doing well. His price has skyrocketed since I brought him in. It's up to 8.3 million. It's been doing all right, but he could have actually had a lot more. How is that XGI 0.27? I don't get that. He had much more clear opportunities to score than that, I think. Cucurella was suspended. Rogers on the bench, and that is basically all she wrote. Well, all right, that wraps up this video. So don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a comment to tell us what you think. Thanks for watching. Merry Christmas. I will try to be back before the Boxing Day fixtures. No, not before the Boxing Day fixtures. I'll be back before the New Year's Eve fixtures, I think. But yeah, Merry Christmas, and I'll catch you all again next time.